We're really excited to have you today. So first of all, thanks for coming. The goal is to equip you with the tools and latest information to be ready to have your best back to school yet.
Yeah, and just really quickly, this application is, or this webinar is geared towards our application partners. So districts are welcome to stay and learn a little bit more about what we're doing with our app partners, but more catered towards those dashboards.
So who are we? I'm Rob Pryor. I run our application success team at Clever, working with all our application partners.
My name is Megan Kier. I'm a principal customer success manager, so working with a lot of you. Was previously on our support team, so kind of have both sides of the house in my knowledge base also.
Excited to see a lot of familiar faces kind of joining and some new partners as well. Hopefully a lot of this is a refresher, but we do have a lot of new features today, and we want to get the logistics out up front. We're using this Zoom console for the webinar, a bit of new technology for me. Our biggest ask of you is that you just ask questions throughout, and then we have a big Q&A section at the back where we'll actually walk through them. So as you're seeing new things come up, feel free to just pop into that window, add a question, and then we'll do our best to get through as many as we can. Secondly, we're recording today's session. So if you find today's session valuable, hopefully you do, you'll go ahead and you'll share that with your teammates as well. And lastly, we'll be sending out a recording link to the webinar, and most importantly, our back to school checklist that actually walks you through everything you need to know to be ready for back to school.
Yeah, so today's agenda, first and foremost, we will be going through some housekeeping items. So making sure all the settings in your Clever dashboard and all of your sharing rules are set up for this back to school. Next, we'll talk through organizational alignment. So making sure that your teams are aligned on how to use the Clever dashboard and that we have really clear communication and escalation pathways between our teams and Clever. Next, we're going to talk through your onboarding strategy. So just ensuring that your teams are set up, are ready to forecast and prepare for the implementation volume that we know comes in August and September. And then last but not least, we will talk through user engagement. So a couple of tools that we have in our dashboard to make sure that we're helping you drive engagement in your platform and then that you are tracking that. And most importantly, probably is the Q&A. So as Rob mentioned, please feel free to post questions throughout, and we will try to get through as many of those as we can at the end of the session. One takeaway that we have for you that we are very excited about is a checklist. So if this seems like a lot of information or there's something that you really want to learn more about, we will be sending out a recording of this webinar along with this checklist after the fact. So please feel free to review it. Should hopefully know what a lot of these things mean after we talk through them today. And then we can make sure we're all set up for August.
And yeah, don't worry too much about taking notes. This checklist is fairly comprehensive, and sharing the webinar and slides will we'll be providing all this to you.
All right, let's get to it. So first category we have on here is housekeeping. I'm going to talk through some of these at a high level, and then we'll send it over to Rob to do a deep dive on some of the ones that may be a little bit newer or unfamiliar. Really quickly, one thing we encourage you all to do at the beginning of every year is recertify your Clever integration. If you go to clever.com/certify, you can access our certification just to kind of recap what you've worked on over this past year and give us the latest and greatest on your integration with Clever. Next, we will review some of the new Clever features that we have coming out to make sure that you are taking advantage of all of the cool things that our teams have worked on this year, mostly at the guidance of your feedback. Next, we have one that I wanted to make a plug for because I know this can be really valuable, setting recommended sharing settings. So when you invite a district to connect, you can in the invite, tell them, which we'll also get to this, which schools you'd like shared. However, when districts requested a connection to your program organically through the Clever dashboard, they often are just taken to a screen that tells them to pick their sharing settings. If there's a default set of rules that you usually want applied, we can surface that to districts. So let's say you're a math program for grades 5 through 8, we can surface that right away in the dashboard. Next, everyone's favorite category, data warnings and errors. There's a baseline set of rules required to get into, for a user to get into Clever. So students, for example, will never be in Clever without an ID or a name. If there are additional requirements on top of Clever's, we can that are specific to your program, we can surface those with data warnings and errors. So we'll talk through that a little bit more, but just making sure that those are current. And last but not least, reviewing data access settings. So if there are fields that are either optional or required for your program that Clever has available or that you do not want to see altogether, you can make sure that those are set up correctly within your Clever dashboard.
Thanks, Megan. So let's go deeper into that review new features bucket. On the Secure Sync side, we've added a few different things. One is this thing called Clever Concierge. You might have seen it kind of sneak up in your application dashboard. This was actually comes out of a pilot program we did last year with select application partners, whereby a user can upload a list of district customers where we can actually queue up invites to go out in bulk. This allowed a few of our partners to actually take a lot of the work of back to school up front and just have all those invites go out at prescribed times. So all you need to do is check out that tab. There's a list of the values we require in order to perform a customer match and to send those out. And then we can actually tailor the invites down to school level in terms of what you want from each district. So that's Clever Concierge. Secondly, we're providing a lot of additional guidance to districts this year in the form of rollover resources in their dashboard. And if you're interested in this stuff, we have a great webinar coming up next week in terms of what we do on behalf of your district customers. So definitely sign up for that one if you're interested to see what happens on their side and the kind of efforts, support, services, and new product updates we're providing them. In particular, I'm excited about this product rollover guide, which really trains them on the best hygiene data practices of bringing their SIS back up and running and sharing data with applications. Secondly, we're providing a much more detailed district portal project plan. So if I want to adopt the Clever portal in full, what does that mean? How should I roll that out? How should I inform my users? Definitely come next week if you want to check that out. On the customization front, we continue to really iterate and offer more flexibility in terms of how the data gets to you and what we can send. One of these areas has been working on content assignment. If you saw our announcements in February, March, we've really been ginning up excitement along this. It's if you have a product catalog or you're a publisher that needs to assign textbooks, for instance, we now have the ability to map content down to courses after their district has shared that information with you. This is pretty powerful because this now is automated and consumable and saves a lot of time if an administrator can take care of this step up front. If you have more questions, we'd love to dive in with you if that's relevant. We now also have the ability to create custom students, teachers, and staff in the district dashboard. So this was a powerful tool in solving some edge cases, and we know that not all the information for users is always in the SIS. This allows district administrators to create those on their side and share that with you. Lastly, we rolled out a new API, version 2.1. We've expanded the schema. So for example, there's now additional grade levels, like transitional kindergarten. There's now a non-binary gender option. And we now have this really powerful tool called extension fields. So if there's data that's not being pulled in by Clever today, exists somewhere else in the SIS, or maybe just exists somewhere else, period, the district can work with our teams to upload that via an extension field. Almost think of it as another column, for example, in the data they're sending us. And you can now consume that over our API. So I think a good example of this, for example, would be if there's a specific set of demographic information or a gifted student code that just doesn't naturally occur in the Clever schema. All right, over to single sign-on. This year, if you've been following along, we've been making a really big push into all district staff. So not just the folks who are tied to instruction in the classroom, but making a big push into everyone at the district, logging into Clever, being able to use their day-to-day applications, even if they're not totally classroom-based. We've also announced the ability for those staff to provide portal announcements and powerful tools to roll out the portal to their other users. And lastly, Active Directory Sync. Prior to this, there were a few ways to sync staff with Clever. We've added the option to actually tie Clever to your Active Directory instance at the district and sync that nightly. So what this means for you is if you're looking at that staff tab in your data browser, or you're pulling in staff, or you have a staff experience today, for a lot of districts, you'll automatically start seeing more staff coming in and more staff coming in with more of those metadata fields populated and more robust information.
One thing to clarify on this is that we did a rebrand that some of you may have read about in our newsletter, but you may know this as school administrators. That's the same thing as staff. So if you're looking at your dashboard and seeing school admins in your districts are talking about staff, that's just because we're in the process of migrating that branding over, but it will be staff going forward.
Thanks, Mike. Engagement is a really, really big focus for us this year. And it started with really redesigning the teacher portal based on a lot of the feedback we were hearing from them. One of them was just really allowing them to start customizing, creating their own pages, grouping apps the way they want to. We've had a lot of powerful early feedback and success with that rollout. If you're interested in checking out the demo, we can provide a link to the demo SSO experience for teachers. Next, we've updated our iOS experience. If anyone on the call today, if you have a native iOS app, we'd love to talk to you. Our partner engineering team has been working with partners to certify them on the new iOS experience. It's a lot smoother than our prior version, and we're just really excited to support this and support more schools using iPads and any iOS through back to school. Lastly, this is one I'm probably most excited about. We've had a lot of feedback from partners saying, hey, Rob, I'm going to a district. I'm onboarding them on Clever. Do they use the portal? Do they kind of use the portal? Do they not use the portal at all? This is the first year we're going to be providing that information along those lines to you in your dashboard, in the district profile. This is going to be really useful for your PD teams and other teams that are really trying to understand what is the current level of usage in the district today, so you can really tailor your message in your training. Lastly, resiliency, always a number one focus of ours is uptime. We've moved to a multi-region AWS setup. That just means that if there are any issues on the Amazon side, we can quickly shift traffic over. So we expect that to really provide a big boost. And we've now automated load testing. So this is just another tool in our engineering kit to ensure that we're detecting problems a lot earlier if they were ever to come up. So those are two I was excited about. And yeah, we can continue. All right. So now we're past the new feature set and we're on to these sort of what I call these lines of defenses. Clever, it's no secret that if this is your second year or even third year on Clever, Clever works best when districts can get the data just right the first time. And there's a few ways we sort of nudge them in that direction. One is every application, we're able to set in the background what's called a recommended sharing template. So for example, if you're a math application and generally you need grades 1 through 6 and you need math subject for sections, we could set up a template so when a district first logs in to set sharing rules, that's what they see. And for example, they can accept that and just go with that recommendation. They can accept it and make a few tweaks and edits, or they can decline altogether and set their own sharing rules. But this is a great first step in sort of pointing them in the right direction. So if there is, for example, a preferred way to share with your application or product, like I just mentioned, either specific users, subjects, we'd love to talk to you to see if there's a way we can nip some of these things in the bud up front and just know that we're pointing districts in the right direction when we're sharing data.
Yeah, and to update these, please submit a ticket with our support team, so support.clever.com, or reach out to your success manager.
All right, our next slide of defense, which Megan had spoken to, data warnings and errors. So we do a lot up front to make sure data is cleaned and validated and normalized, but if your application still has a few extra steps in terms of what you need to come through and what you need data to look like, this is one of our areas where we can catch this and surface it to the district. This appears both in your dashboard and the district dashboard. We have data errors, which if we set data errors, we'll actually block those records from coming over the API into your product. These would be things, for example, which might cause a serious issue, prevent a sync, for example, I've seen in the past, having a special character coming over email, which could cause an account creation issue. Data warnings are more of a flag. It's to say, should this come over, for example, students with non-unique email, that would cause a degraded experience on our product. It won't prevent people from using it. And you'll see there on the right, on that CSV tab, the district can actually go in and download a specific list of those records and then work with the Clever support team to troubleshoot them. One of the most common ways is fixing those records in the SIS. Sometimes they unshare the data, and there's a few other transformations we can work with to make sure the data you're getting is clean and every student is set up to go on day one. Next, we've added this section in your application settings in your dashboard called data access. So today, for example, a district could share different records with you, but what if within the record, you actually only need specific data types, and maybe you don't need a lot of the sensitive data that could become a liability, or you just don't need it all and you want to adhere to best practice. Here you can come in and say, from a student record, for instance, here's exactly what I need and here's what I don't need. Those will prevent those records from coming over the API. And we found that this has been really, really helpful in a lot of areas. It allows districts to provide more enriched data to applications that need it and to not send that data along to applications that don't.
Thanks, Rob. This is probably the most serious a lot of you have ever heard us be if you've spoken with us.
I'm very serious about back to school. So.
Excellent. So the next category that we are going to talk through is organizational alignment. Really like to make sure that we have these lines of communication and details worked out now while everyone still has time on their calendars. So first and foremost, setting up your team member user settings. In your dashboard, you can add team members with either edit or view access only to various categories, and then can also prevent them from having access to PII. So let's say there's a sales team member that just wants to be able to log in and see whether or not a district is on Clever. You can set that person up with view only access and no access to PII, so they can just search for districts and see their Clever status. That is on the Teams page of your Clever dashboard. And if you are the account owner, you can just click edit and adjust their settings. Next, we're going to learn how to do probably one of the most important, or the two most important things, or the next two, of back to school, learning how to send a district invite, and then also how to review, accept, or decline inbound district requests. We will talk through how to contact Clever support, a fan favorite for a lot of people out there. And then partner engineering. So the team that works a little bit more closely with you on integrations and just getting things off the ground is always available at integrations@clever.com. And then last but not least, and kind of going along with all of these different things, is defining both internal and external escalation pathways. So making sure that the right people within your organization have access to Clever and understand what their troubleshooting kind of cap is, whether they're escalating to a tier 2 team, and then also when to loop Clever in before we really get into the thick of the summer.
Great. All right. So now that we're done with all the data defense and troubleshooting, onto my favorite features. How do you actually invite a district to come onto Clever? You have that on the top right, you'll find your search bar, and you can enter in any school district in America, whether that's on Clever or not. Next, if you actually click into that district, you'll get a lot of valuable information about what schools were already syncing, some baseline information on when they've last synced. And when clicking into the invite, you can list who your contact is at the district. After that, when you send the invite out, we'll go out and we'll find the Clever dashboard owner CCing your contact. What this is so powerful is because getting these two people on the same page previously could be quite difficult. Sometimes they sit in different offices. You might have sold to a school principal or a curriculum coach. Letting the Clever dashboard owner know this is a legitimate request coming through, and this is who you've been working with, really helps streamline things. And lastly, once you've invited the district, that email goes out, you'll see those queue up in the main part of your dashboard under invited districts. Lastly, one thing I'll note, you'll see the kind of the Clever C as you search districts in there. Those will tell you whether those districts are on Clever, and those are relatively turnkey. We see those kind of turn around very quickly in terms of how district administrators respond. You can also invite off Clever districts from this same page. So if a district is not on Clever today, and you want to offer this to your district customer, initiating the request from here will actually queue up a ticket on our side for a real human being, a member of our district onboarding team, to reach out, walk them through what setup looks like, see if they're interested, and then make sure they're holding their hand all the way to data syncing and sharing data with you. All right. What about district requests that come inbound to you? This is a great problem to have. People, administrators are finding your product popular. They're walking through our back to school guide and they're saying, I need to add a math application. What's been purchased to the district? Those will also queue up at the homepage of your Clever dashboard under pending requests. I believe we also send an email out to you letting you know a district has requested your application. You'll be able to come in here, click into each request. You'll see who's requesting it. The district can suggest a launch date whereby they say, here's when I would expect to have this, have your application up and running. And that's when your portal icon becomes available on student, teacher, and staff portals. You have total control in adjusting that date and working with the district if it should be earlier or later. But just another way to get connected, look for pending requests to come in via email and this pending request tab. All right, so who's here at Clever to help you? Our vaunted Clever support team, which we continue to increase in size as we increase the school footprint and the applications that work with us. Support.clever.com will be your best resource for opening tickets there. You also have the option to CC district customers you're working with, and they handle a variety of issues. We tier the team based on the issue complexity, whether it's mapping a field in an SIS, troubleshooting login, or just helping a district that is sharing Google for the first time. They're a really powerful team, and they're really your first go-to during back to school. Next, partner engineering. These are the folks your developer set has worked with in building your technical integration. So if you're finding that there's an issue technically with how you're syncing data or even log on your side, this group will get involved, either being looped in by Clever support, or you can reach out to them directly at integrations@clever.com. Megan had mentioned certification earlier, where to go to on iOS, integrations@clever.com. They're your team to consult on all things related to your connection between your application and Clever. Lastly, your application success manager, Megan here being one of them that works with you today, is a great source for information, guidance, especially if you're going to be using Clever Concierge or new features, as well as just helping plan out your back to school and for issue escalation.
Yeah, and one team you may have noticed that we didn't mention that we're going to talk a lot about next week also is our district success team. So under that bucket on the right side where it says Clever support, we really just wanted to include everyone at Clever. There is a whole team behind you. So you may see quite a few names looped in, but don't worry too much about what email address to send various pieces of information or questions to. What we wanted to show in this diagram is really that we're all supporting each other. Our objective is the same as your objective, which is to get school districts up and running as quickly as possible this summer. To do that, we really need to work in close collaboration with all of you. Please use Clever support as a resource and know that we are here trying to get everything as up and running as quickly as possible. In order to do that, I think it's very important to have escalation pathways defined pretty early on. So Rob walked you through a little bit about how our team is structured. Make sure that your team understands how they are structured as well. So whether everyone should have access to the Clever dashboard and will be troubleshooting issues, whether anything that's related to Clever is immediately escalated to tier 2, et cetera, just so we're not training people on how the dashboard works and how they can get a hold of Clever support in the middle of the crazy time.
I would say there's no right answer to this. Depending on how your company is structured and organized internally, you're going to want to take a fresh look on how kind of information flows. And we're happy to consult on it. So I'd recommend reaching out to your Clever application success manager, especially if you're a big company that has like a set of field team, a sales team, data integrations team, a developer set, and making sure they all know which resources and generally where issues should go in what order should they arise.
Excellent. Now on to onboarding strategy. So you can kind of think of this one actually as an ordered list. We've talked through some of this stuff already, so I'm not going to go too into detail on a lot of it. But first and foremost, when you are working with new districts to Clever, please utilize our Matchmaker tool. Rob will talk through that a bit, but what it does is it matches all of the data that you have in your existing system to the data in Clever for a specific user set within a district. So if you're bringing on a new district and want to make sure that their historical data is maintained, Matchmaker is a really great tool to help support that. Second, please use Clever Concierge. This is the first year that we have released it, and it's already been a pretty big success, so we're excited about that. Monitor district launch dates. So when you see that launch date tab in your dashboard or icon in your dashboard, what that does is it hides your icon from student portals until that launch date. So if you want to start bringing districts on now, but know that you don't want students to be logging in until the middle of August or September, you can start connecting them now and making sure that they are ready to go and their data is cleaned up before that icon is actually available. Next, check district data warnings and errors. So we mentioned setting those up, but make sure as you're bringing districts on, you are checking the data warnings and errors to see if there's anything that we need to work with the district to resolve. Make sure you test student, teacher, or staff logins. This feature is one of the ones that we released kind of casually and ended up, I think, still being one of the most popular tools we have in the dashboard today. So if you go to an individual student, teacher, or staff login page, you can actually test that login to see what that user will experience when accessing your program via Clever. And the last two, which we are really excited about and have done a lot of work around this year, are to distribute login instructions and distribute a coming soon PD guide that will be within your dashboard. So for an individual district, you can use the login instructions to educate them on how to access your program via Clever. These are available on district profile pages. And then the PD guide, which will be up on August 1st, is something for your team to use when they're out in the field educating people about what your program is and how to access it. It's just a very lightweight overview of Clever and how to access your program via Clever.
All right, on to Matchmaker. If you've worked with a partner engineering team, one of the first questions we ask your developers is, what will your matching strategy be if you intend on matching prior accounts to incoming new Clever accounts? So if it's important that a student record that existed prior to Clever be matched with an account that will be maintained from Clever going forward, we typically ask you to define this during the integration process. So a few applications, even on the call, already have automated mechanisms for dealing with this. But there still might be edge cases, or there still might be times where you want to upload a one-off and get a response from us on where these exact matches lie. So here's a place within your dashboard, I think it's in the developer toolkit, yep, on the left, where you can upload a CSV of students, teachers, schools, or sections. And we'll actually go and match against the shared data that's being shared with you. So data needs to be shared first. And then we will return that data with Clever IDs where there's an exact match. So it's super conservative. We're not ever gonna send you a student that, a John Smith on a John Smith. But a few applications have really found this effective in being able to perform mid-year transitions, or if they just want to preserve data year over year. All right. Clever Concierge. We're going to plug it again. I see. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I know we were going to wait till Q&A, but I saw one of the first questions from Han at Imagine Learning was, where is Clever Concierge? Here's where it is in your dashboard. We've added it right there at the bottom, and really it's just an area to guide you on how to create that file. You don't need to include all these fields, but the more, the better. That allows us to perform the match on our side, and then you submit this securely through your Clever dashboard. So you're not emailing sensitive customer lists over email or anything. You can submit it here, and then we reach out and then work with you to queue up your invites and to make sure you're ready to go for back to school. All right. Here's another thing we're excited about is this is on the in your dashboard. If you're able to click into a district profile, we're going to be providing professional development guides for your teams as well as login instructions. So these will be a really good thing to circulate. Here's Pittsburgh Public School, for instance. If you have a PD session coming up with them, you want to log in here, click through, and then circulate this to the relevant teams.
Yeah, we're really excited about this. So you'll be getting quite a few notifications, and it will be linked in we're going to double down on it next week in our webinar and then send it to you afterwards. But hopefully this will be a really great resource, and I think it's something that a lot of you have been asking for a while. So we are very happy that we were able to deliver it this year. All right, we are almost into Q&A, which is usually the best part of these things. Really quickly wanted to talk through user engagements and just make sure you guys knew about a couple of tools that are available to you in your districts. Analytics, so Rob will talk through this, but the analytics tab in your dashboard has a lot of really great tools for you to use to make sure that you understand how your users are accessing your program and what the tools available are in Clever. And then Clever Academy, which is something we just launched this year and are very excited about for district administrators and teachers. If you're working with people who want to learn a little bit more about Clever and the tools available.
All right, analytics. I'm a little sad we had to choose a time window in the summer when these aren't higher, but the excitement of this is actually if you're following the chronology of today's webinar, it's sort of a before, during back to school, and now hopefully after. Now students and teachers are logging in, and you want to stay really abreast of where and how responsive that user base is. You can come in here and get information in addition to just these general trends. You can drill down and understand what are the logins by district, by school, what are your top 10 schools and districts, and hopefully pass it on to teams where to make sure you're driving engagement on your side as well. There's some custom options in here to set different time windows, etc. We'd love feedback on this. It's something that I think you'll continue to see evolve throughout the year, but it's available in your dashboard today to split out by user and to ensure post implementation users are coming in and finding your application. All right, Clever Academy, which is our first really foray into providing a big training suite to staff and soon teachers. It's been one of our fun things on Twitter recently to see administrators coming into Clever, navigating over to Clever Academy, taking a few courses and best practices on Clever, and then actually getting certified. We provide them with a certificate and even a leveling to let them know kind of where they are in their Clever journey. Hopefully for you, this means more district administrators that are really capable and know exactly how to use Clever. But we've rolled this out and we're seeing a pretty good response so far.
Yeah. Excellent. Right. Now on to the Q&A. I'm going to mute this just for a second and then we will dive right in momentarily. All right. It looks like the first question that we had posted was already answered, which is where is Clever Concierge? Next we have, who should we contact about our native iOS app? The partner engineering team would be your best resource. So integrations@clever.com. When in doubt also though, please don't worry too much about where to direct all of this. You can always submit a ticket with our support team and we can triage internally, but integrations@clever.com is your best bet.
We refreshed the dev docs too. So if you go to dev.clever.com, you'll see the latest on how to set up iOS. So thank you, Bria from Bold.
Yeah. Next, we have a question from Dakota from Everfi. Hi, Dakota. With the shift from admin to staff, how is that being communicated to district staff members? We did a pretty big push in our newsletters and then also a few district-facing webinars. It doesn't actually mean a big change on the back end for districts. It just is kind of a rebrand. So everything is still functional. I'm not expecting a big disruption as far as like getting the data into Clever. If you have specific questions about that, Dakota, please reach out to me. And then anyone else, please reach out to your success manager or Clever support.
Great. All right, Corey from Learning A to Z asks, so applications can give you information on the ideal way to set up sharing rules, and those will show up on that automated sharing screen. Yes, that's correct. I believe Learning A to Z does have one. I think the tricky thing here is we still have to set these up in the background, so this is really in consultation with your application success manager. So if you want to double check, I know you work with Steve and our team, he'd be happy to walk you through where that comes up. For everyone else on the call, what happens here is a district requests your application, you say yes, they go into share for the first time, and they just start off with that template. So if it's 4 through 6 grades and subject equals English language arts, that's where they would start, and then they can kind of tweak it from there.
Next, we have another question from Han from Imagine Learning, which is, do we contact Clever support for any districts that aren't nested within Clever, so they're not coming up on district search? The answer to that is yes, you do. If you are searching for a district and want to invite them and they are not already on Clever, they will often come up just because we use MDR and NCS to pre-populate those in our database. Occasionally those slip through, which is what Han's referring to here. And in that case, please reach out to Clever support and we will make sure that they get an invitation.
We're about 75,000 schools on Clever today, so hopefully this is less and less of a problem. But yes, do let us know. This is a bit of an edge case if it comes up. All right. Do you need to be on the latest API for the new gender options? Yes, you do. So if you're interested in converting to the new API, we've had a number of folks do it already. Also reach out to the partner engineering team at integrations@clever.com.
Next, we have a question from Corey from Learning A to Z. The PD guide is something we can customize and target to customers who are using our product. And the answer is yes, which I'm very excited we can say. So the PD guide will have your branding on it also. And then it'll actually be individualized based on the district. So it will have their login instructions on it, which we populate from information in their profile page. But this is geared to be something that's really catered to your team. Corey, I believe you work with Steve, which Rob may have mentioned, but if there's any additional things that you want to see on there or more co-branding, let us know once that's available August 1st. And please do come to our next webinar where we will be talking through a lot of the information in the PD guide and how to use it and best practices around rolling that out.
Next question, could we see what districts go through the Clever Academy? I'm not sure, but I love this feedback because it's almost like the same thing as how familiar is the district or using the portal today, or are they ready? I would love to provide like almost a verified sort of check mark next to an account owner that has completed Clever Academy. I don't believe it's on the roadmap today. I will follow up if it is, but this is a wonderful piece of feedback. So thank you, Todd, from Chessgate.
Next, we have a question from Julia from alaska.gov, and that's, would Matchmaker be more for those districts and schools using rostering? Matchmaker is actually only available in the application dashboard. So the partners that I believe you're working with, Julia, will have that tool in their dashboard. Not something that you need to worry about on the district side, but they'll be handling that for you.
Great. Next question. Can you please explain the preload testing that will be done on your end in a bit more detail? I believe, and I may get this wrong, so please.
I can talk through
that. Go for it.
So I believe what you're talking to, Corey, which is a little bit of a preview here for something that's coming out in our webinar, or sorry, our newsletter on Thursday, is that we're going to have a tool in your dashboard that allows you to see what data fields are populated or missing coming very soon. So when you look on that district profile page for a district you're not connected to, you'll see for teachers, 13 of the 14 fields that you require are populated for the majority of their users. Look out for more information on that in the newsletter we have coming out on Thursday.
Thank you, Corey, for actually covering a feature we didn't cover. So
bonus points.
Awesome job servicing that.
All right, I think that is all the questions we have today. So unless anyone wants to post.
We'll give the last 30 seconds for anyone who has any stragglers.
Feel free to grill Rob here if there's anything you want to ask him.
Most importantly, take a look at that, we're calling the back to school checklist. Well, everything we covered today, links, more detail, and any questions you have, just reach out to us and we're ready to dive in with you. This is our, we're all hands on deck. This is our busy season and we're just so excited for y'all to take advantage of the latest on Clever and to have a great back to school.
Thank you so much for coming today. I hope this was really valuable for you. We really appreciate your attendance. So just a little bit about what's next. Tomorrow you will get an email with a link to the recording and a link to download the back to school checklist. So keep an eye out for that. And then please register for our next webinar, which is setting your districts up for a successful back to school. We will have one of our managers for the district success team, as well as one of our product managers joining to talk through some of the things we're doing to prepare, and then a little bit more information about the tools we alluded to today. So that is July 30th at 10 a.m. PST, and there will be a link in the email going out to you tomorrow. Thank you all for coming, and we are excited to buckle down and be prepared for everyone's best back to school yet.
Thank you. Bye.